I am pretty sure that almost all gamers are constantly trying to push their PC to put out as many frames as possible by overclocking it. But also, I am pretty sure that a good part of the gamers do not realize that they are getting more frames that their monitor can handle. But can you really see more FPS than your monitor can put out? Well, we all know that by now, and the answer is no. You cannot see more frames than your monitor can show you, and it is now proven over and over, theoretically and practically, that you don't need more frames than your monitor can put out. In fact, I can add that every frame above your monitor refresh rate is a total waste, and I'm going to prove you that in this video practically and with facts, not only words. Obviously today I'm not here just to tell you that you cannot see more frames over the refresh rate of the monitor, but rather to tell you that not only you can't see those extra frames, but also you're getting worse performance because of tearing and jittering of the screen. And more yet, by letting your PC render more frames that your monitor can handle, you are shortening the life of your PC, and also you're wasting a lot of energy on your electric bill. So technically you're not just getting a worse gameplay, but also you're wasting your money. Yes, you're wasting your money, and not only in the electricity bill, but also in potential hardware problems that your PC might have. Because obviously by overclocking and pushing your components to produce more frames, basically you're telling them to work more than they would do normally. But even if you don't overclock, still, if your PC is producing more frames that your monitor can handle, yet again, it's working more than it should. And by working more, obviously they get hotter also, and so the lifespan of the components gets potentially compromised, and you can run into problems sooner rather than later. Now, to be clear, even at full speed, your PC may last you a long time, at least the time until you decide to change it or do something else with it. But still, by running your components at full speed, when in most cases you don't have to and you don't need to, this definitely increases the chances of your components to fail earlier, mainly your GPU and CPU, since we're talking about gaming performance and FPS. So today I'm going to show you how you can save yourself a lot of potential problems with your PC, and most importantly how you can save yourself some money in the process, and at the end of the day have a better overall experience with your PC. Obviously I'm not going to talk only in theory, but again I will show you that with facts and tests that I have done, so you guys can see it practically. As I mentioned, I am not going too much in detail to explain the fact that you don't need to render more frames that your monitor can show you, because it is already a closed topic, and you can find hundreds of videos only about this topic alone. But instead, in this video I'm going to show you guys how you can save your PC and your components from wearing out and potentially break down, how you can keep them as cool as possible, how you can have a better gameplay experience, and also at the same time how to save some energy and some money in this process. And the beauty of this thing is that all you need is just a very simple trick: limiting your FPS. That's it, guys. All you need to do is just limiting your FPS to your monitor refresh rate. That's it. It's that simple. And again, I'm not here to just tell you that, but also prove that to you and show how easy it is to do it. And no, we're not going to use VSync, but another better way, Well, technically you can use VSync also, but no one really recommends it anyway, because in some cases VSync can interfere with the gaming performance and experience. And also I still think that the way I'm going to show you, it's much easier and much more efficient. Okay, before we begin with the facts, let's talk data for a moment and who can benefit from this simple trick. Because obviously not everyone can use it, and obviously a good part of you already know this. If we go to the official Steam hardware and software survey, we can easily see that for gaming, still today the most used GPU is the GTX 1060 with more than 11% share, and the most used resolution is still 1080p with almost 64% share. Now, what does it have to do with today's video? Well, it's very simple. If you get a 1060 and play at 1080p, even in modern games with medium to high settings, you can easily go over 60 FPS. And the same thing is for AMD counterparts like the RX 570 or RX 580. As you can see in my test video that I have made for my RX 580 with a 7-year-old system, you can see that at 1080p, even at max settings, we can get very nice frame rates above 60 FPS. If we use a bit more sensible settings, we get even more than 100 FPS in some games. And this is very important because unfortunately I couldn't find data for this, but I am betting that most gamers out there are still using 60 Hz monitors. And basically this is the category of the gamers that I think will benefit the most from this trick. Especially those of you guys that have a better GPU than a 1060 or a 580 and still have a 60 Hz monitor. But this does not mean that people that have 120 or 140 or even better monitor cannot benefit from this trick. Sure you can, because I'm guessing that a gamer that can afford a 144 Hz panel means that also have the horsepower to run to 144 Hz or more, because otherwise it will be a total waste. Anyway, the biggest gains are going to be if you have a 60 Hz monitor paired with a system that can do more than 100, maybe 144 or 200 FPS. So this is the category you can that can benefit the most. But still, I think that most of you will benefit from this anyway in any scenarios. But you have to keep in mind that the scenario must be that your system must produce more FPS than your monitor can handle. If you are on the category of people that have a system that cannot push the FPS that your monitor can handle, then basically you cannot profit from this trick. Now let's get to the facts. In my case, I have an AMD Ryzen 5 3600 CPU paired with an RTX 2070 Super, 16GB of DDR4 3000 megahertz memory, and a cheap monitor that has a 144 Hz panel. So in this case I can show you how much you can profit or save in most scenarios. Now, as you can see, I'm playing Apex Legends, and here you can see my PC at full speed almost, with no limitations of FPS, and easily getting around 240 to maybe 300 FPS it goes sometimes. But if you take a look at the power consumption, you can see it is easily more than 300 watts. Right now it fluctuates from 315, 314, 313. So yeah, basically let's call it 310 watts without any limitation. Also take a look at the temperature for the GPU and CPU. The GPU is right now at 74 C. It goes to around 77 sometimes when I do extensive gameplay. Um, so they're not too high or to be concerned, but you have to keep in mind that my PC is an open bench. If it was in a closed case, the temps would be much higher. And by the way, if you want to see if you want to see the build of my PC, you will have the link in the video description, so you can check that video out and see how I built my easy open bench PC. So maybe it will help you a little bit if you want to build your own open bench PC at home. Now, I know that some people don't care at all and will leave this as it is and go on with their life, but if you're still watching, this means you're interested in this truck and in this trick, sorry. And since we have already established that we can see more frames that our monitor can display, and we also don't need more frames because we will get stuttering or jittering, this means that we can fix these problems. And the way to do that is very simple. Now, I don't know if you see the jittering or the stuttering of the screen or the tearing in this case, because I'm getting more frames that my monitor can display because the video is going to be limited by YouTube's FPS. But yeah, they are there, believe me, they are there. Basically, what we need to do now is go to the MSI official page and download the MSI Afterburner and install it together with the Riva Tuner static server. If you go to the bottom of the page, you will find the download links here. If the MSI Afterburner download comes without Riva Tuner, you can still get that separate from MSI. Just a simple Google search and you can find it very easily. After you have installed those MSI and Riva Tuner statics, because there are two different installation, then you just open Riva Tuner. This is Riva Tuner for all the people that don't know already. And here is only one thing we need to change. Frame rate limit, as you can see, is this one in here. You just enter how much frames you want your system to show, and that's it, you're done. And this applies to all games. You don't have to do anything else. Works for all systems and GPUs. For example, if you want to use VSync, you'll have to go to the settings for each game and set it manually to the desired option. But with this one, you just enter the number of frames you want your system to display, and that's it. It will apply to anything in the PC. And believe it or not, this trick is used by pro players too. For example, in Apex Legends, there are some ways to limit the FPS and other stuff. So let me show you. When you go to Origin and go to Apex, you can go to the settings and then have to go to game properties and then go to launch options, and so basically using the command line argument. But that's a bit complicated for someone, and it applies only to that particular game, to this particular game. So basically you get the idea where I want to go with this. Now let's see practically what happens. My PC right now is showing all the frames it can and consuming around, we said, like 310 watts. So what I can do is go to Riva Tuner, and at the frame limit, we just set the frame limit of our monitor, which is in this case is 144 Hertz. We hit enter, and that's it. You now you don't close it, you minimize it, and when we jump into the game, you will see that the frame rate right now is at 144, which is the speed which my monitor goes, or basically how many frames my monitor can handle. And again, I don't know if you will notice, but now I don't have no stuttering, no tearing of the screen, nothing. It's all smooth as it should be, because my system is giving to my monitor as many frames as this monitor can handle, and basically you get the idea. But most importantly, now take a look at the consumption. As you can see, the The RTX 2070 now is at 70% usage, 71, maybe a little bit less. It depends. It depends on where you are and what is shown on the screen. But check out the temperatures also. They went from 75, sometimes they go to 77, and now they sit around 65 to 67, which basically is 10 degrees less than before. And also check out the power consumption. Now we are sitting around 267, 68, 67, 64, so let's call it 265, or let's say 270. So basically we have saved, in this case, 40 watts by just limiting the FPS and not compromising anything else in the gameplay experience. On the contrary, we are getting better performance, because with no stuttering, with no jittering or tearing of the screen, definitely you are getting a better experience with your game. Now my system and my monitor are going to be in sync, obviously, because the PC is going to send, as we said, to my monitor just the number of frames that we told it, or that it needs to. And basically that's it. We are all done. Now I can enjoy a smoother experience and also a better life for my PC components, and obviously less power consumption for my electric build, because I don't need to have more frames than 144 hertz, or frames in this case. But now let's see what happens if you had this kind of configuration, and let's say that you have a monitor that has a 120 hertz refresh rate. So let's just jump back to Riva Tuner. And obviously we set the FPS this time to 120, hit enter, let's jump back into the game. Okay, we are back into the game. As you can see, the FPS is fixed at 120 because we told it to on a Riva Tuner. And yet again, check out the temperatures going down, check out the wattage, the power consumption going down. We went almost 20 to 30 watts less again. We are around 240 to 46. Let's call it 245. It depends. 250. So basically another jump in quality of the game, and also in power consumption and better temperatures. And you can see that the GPU now is only at 60% usage, 61%, so it's totally normal. Now let's see the best case scenario if I had a 60 hertz monitors, which by the way I had for a long time before I got the 144 hertz one, and still I am using it as a second screen. Okay, and here obviously we set this time the FPS to 60. Let's say I have a 60 hertz monitor, and let's jump back right into the game. Okay, well, now you can see that we went from 240, or let's say 310, like I was at my maximum. Now we are at, as you can see, 170, 175, maybe 180. It can go, no, less than 180 watts of consumption, and still I'm getting the frames that I need to get. This is the case if I had a 60 hertz monitor. So basically now you can see the improvements which we are getting by just limiting the FPS that our PC is producing and transmitting to the monitor, and obviously the monitor to us. Pretty cool, right? This is a very, very nice trick you can use, and it's very to do. Okay, now let's jump into another game for a more real scenario, because not all of you have a 300 FPS PC with a 60 hertz panel, but instead let's look at when we have, let's say, an 80 to 100 fps PC with a 60 hertz monitor, because I think this is the most used right now, and this might be the most probable case for you guys out there, especially the guys that own a 60 hertz monitor. Okay, so now we are into another game and we are doing 75 FPS, and you can see the GPU running at 94%, so almost at full speed. Also, the CPU is pretty packed in this game, 66%, because this is a game that is pretty CPU intensive, so technically you can see that the usage is almost at 100% of my PC. And also, if you take a look at the consumption, we are again at 315 watts, so basically the same thing. I can assure you that the wattage can jump up to 370 watts sometimes, depending on where you are into the scene. So technically you get the idea of the consumption and the saving that we can do. Now let's go back into Riva Tuner again, and obviously we are going to set the frame limit to 60, hit enter, and let's see what happens when we get back into the game. As you can see, the frame rate is fixed at 60, doesn't change, and obviously, as you can see, the usage of the GPU jumps down from 95 to 75%, and also the CPU a little bit less. So yeah, basically you get the idea. If we take a look again at the wattage, you can see that the power consumption has gone down. Obviously, with this game we cannot save as much as we did in Apex, because in Apex you can get 300 FPS, where in here, so basically we go from 300 FPS to 60 FPS, which is a very different ratio of FPS, where in here we go from 75, 77, we go to 60, so basically 15 FPS less. So technically even the power consumption, let's say, converges to this difference. So yeah, basically you now get the idea of this useful trick that you can use with your PC. And to sum it up, you have to keep in mind again that this is not a trick that everyone can use, but you can use this trick only if you have more frames produced by your PC than your monitor can put out, or than your monitor refresh rate. So basically, if you are putting out 70 FPS and your monitor is at 60, you can profit from this trick, because you have to limit the FPS from 70 to 60. If you produce more than that, you can profit even more than that. And the profit is not only in energy, but it's also in temperature for the GPU and CPU mainly. And basically, by lowering their temperature and by lowering their usage, technically you are giving them a better workflow, and you are giving them a better chance to let's say last longer, because obviously they are working not at full speed, and obviously they are not getting as hotter as they would normally. And basically the profits, you can see that are all over the place. It's not that you profit only in energy saving or only in temperatures and so on. The profits can be in all directions, even in gameplay, as we already talked about, because obviously with the same frames pushing out from the PC and pushing out from the monitor, the gameplay will be in sync, at least in 99% of the cases, because maybe some games may not behave the same way, but I'm pretty sure that 99.9% will get this benefit. So technically with this trick you get better gameplay, you get better lifespan of your and obviously during this process you obviously save some money at the end of the day by obviously consuming less energy. So overall, with this simple, very simple trick, you are going to have a very nice time with your PC and with your gameplay. All right then, so that was it for today. Hope this was helpful for you guys. If so, please consider subscribing to the channel. Also turn on notification so you never miss one of my new videos. And don't forget to stay tuned because I am in the process of doing a test bench for this PC that I have just built right now, so you have an idea how it performs now at its full potential. And yeah, as always, catch you guys on the next one. Bye bye.